Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're this show where we take really powerful source materials and unpack the most insightful bits just for you.
Exactly.
And today, wow, we're diving into a text that, even though it was written, what, centuries ago,
1,500 years ago, yeah.
it still speaks so directly to these massive questions we all have. Like, why do good people suffer?
Right. Or is everything just faded? Do we actually have free will?
And the big one, what happens after we die?
We're navigating excerpts from City of God today. And it's truly monumental. This isn't just looking back at history.
No.
It's this deep philosophical, theological journey. It tackles the very core of, well, existence, suffering, finding purpose.
So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to take these, let's be honest, pretty dense ideas.
It can be, yeah.
These big philosophical problems, these really surprising observations from the text, and just make them clear, make them relatable.
And hopefully deeply insightful for you.
Think of it as your shortcut, maybe, to getting genuinely well-informed on some of life's huge mysteries.
A philosophical toolkit, perhaps.
I like that. Okay, so let's kick things off with something really personal. That internal tug-of-war we all kind of feel. Our source hits on this powerful concept right away. That a lot of human misery, sort of at its root, comes from an internal disobedience to oneself.
Disobedience to oneself. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's not about breaking laws outside. It's that feeling inside. When your mind is racing or your body aches or gets older.
It just doesn't quite do what you want it to do.
Exactly. It's like there's this little rebellion happening constantly inside us.
It's a really insightful way to put it. And the text actually gives this internal friction a name. Concupiscence.
Okay, concupiscence. Sounds a bit academic.
It does. But the idea is pretty straightforward. It's described as this disobedient motion we feel in the flesh, like an involuntary urge that pops up.
Okay.
The text links it back to what it calls the first sin. But here's the crucial part, the nuance.
Right.
If we rebel against these motions, meaning you feel the urge, but your mind, your will, doesn't consent to it.
Like swatting away a distracting thought.
Sort of. Or like something that happens in a dream. You don't consciously choose it. The text says if you don't consent, then those motions are blameless.
Ah, okay. So feeling the urge isn't the problem itself.
Exactly. They're felt. But they don't automatically make you guilty if your will doesn't go along with them.
So what does this actually mean for you, listening?
Well, it offers a kind of liberating perspective, I think.
How so?
Well, when you feel that pull towards something you know maybe isn't great for you, could be anything, procrastinating, eating junk food.
Sure, happens to everyone.
The text is suggesting that the feeling itself, that impulse, isn't where the moral weight lies. Real purity or responsibility comes down to whether your will agrees with it or fights it.
So it shifts the focus.
Right, from the initial feeling to your internal response. It's a different way to think about self-control, maybe even self-blame. That leads us right into an even more, well, provocative question the text tackled. Really radical for its time.
Which is?
Can a person lose their purity if their body is violated against their will?
Wow, okay, that's heavy. And yeah, given historical context, you'd expect a certain answer.
You would.
Yeah.
But the source's answer here is surprisingly empathetic, almost modern.
It really pushes back against some old ideas, doesn't it? Especially from ancient Rome and places like that.
Absolutely. The text states really firmly that true purity is a virtue of the soul.
The soul, not the body.
Right. It makes it super clear.
Yeah.
If the body is forcibly made use of to satisfy the lust of another, but the will, that inner core, the consent, never agrees.
Then purity is not lost.
Exactly. It's not about what happens to your body without your choice. It's about the integrity of your spirit, your will.
And to really drive this home, the text uses a comparison.
A very stark contrast. It talks about the famous Roman woman Lucretia.
Right, who killed herself after being violated. A classic Roman story of honor.
Yes, but the text offers a different interpretation. It suggests her act wasn't just about purity itself, but maybe more from this overwhelming burden of her shame.
Okay.
And a proud dread, a fear that people might think her endurance meant she was somehow complicit.
So fear of what others would think. Reputation.
That's the implication, acting out of fear of human judgment.
And how does that contrast?
It contrasts it with Christian women mentioned in the text who face similar horrific experiences.
Okay.
But crucially, they declined to avenge upon themselves the guilt of others. They didn't turn the violence inward.
So they lived.
They lived and found the glory of chastity within their own conscience and in God's eyes. not in public opinion.
That highlights a massive difference in values, doesn't it?
Totally. One is focused on external reputation, the other on internal integrity and that divine connection.
And this whole discussion also opens up the bigger question of suicide, which the text addresses directly.
It does. It argues that taking one's own life is generally unlawful. Full stop.
Generally. But is there an exception?
Well, the text says, unless it is explicitly ordered by him whose commands we may not neglect. So, a direct divine command.
Like who?
It gives examples like Samson pulling down the pillars,
Okay, yeah.
or Abraham being willing to sacrifice Isaac. The text frames these not as personal choices driven by despair or shame.
But as following orders from God.
Exactly. It uses an analogy. Think of a soldier. Following a lawful human order to kill is different from acting on a private impulse.
Sure. The context matters.
So the text argues, if even human authority changes the moral calculation, imagine divine authority. It's very specific about this distinction. It has to be a perceived divine command.
Okay. Now let's shift gears a bit and confront maybe the question that bothers people most. It's haunted humanity forever.
Which is?
Why do good people suffer? Why do bad things happen to good people while, the wicked often seem to get away with everything, even prosper?
Yes. The problem of suffering.
Our source is incredibly honest here. It just admits straight up that God's judgments are unsearchable.
Doesn't try to give easy answers.
No, it acknowledges we see it all the time. Good men involved in the ills of life and bad men enjoying the good of it. It's universal. It's confusing.
It is. And the text doesn't pretend that paradox isn't real. But if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture it paints.
Okay.
It insists that God's providence, his sort of overarching care and guidance, still extends to everyone.
Everyone, good and bad.
Yes, it says he lavishes these universal temporal blessings, things like light, air, water, food, even the human soul itself, on both good and bad alike.
Okay, so we all get the basics, but that doesn't explain why the good folks suffer specifically.
Right. So the text proposes a couple of reasons. Suffering might serve as chastisement for those who stray, a kind of correction.
A wake-up call.
Maybe. Or for the righteous, the already good people, suffering might be intended to make their piety more truthful, to deepen it, test it, refine it.
So it's not random. It has a purpose, even if we don't see it.
That's the argument. It's part of a larger, often mysterious divine plan. It can be seen as something that refines faith rather than just punishment.
So for you listening, what's the takeaway here? This idea kind of encourages us to grapple with life's unfairness without demanding instant, neat answers. It invites you to think that maybe even in suffering, there's an unseen purpose.
Not always easy to grasp, though.
Definitely not. But maybe a purpose that could lead to growth or purification. It's a call to trust in a bigger picture, a hidden design, rather than just writing off adversity as meaningless.
And purely negative.
Right. Okay, let's pivot now. From suffering to another huge debate. Free will versus destiny.
The big one. Are we puppets or players?
Exactly. Does fate control everything, or do our choices actually shape our lives? Our source takes a pretty strong stance here. It directly confronts that ancient belief that the stars determine what we shall do.
Astrology, basically. Fate written in the stars.
Yeah. And the text calls this opinion just plain absurd.
Strong words.
Very. Why? Because, it argues, if the stars dictated everything, then no god whatever is to be worshipped or prayed to. What would be the point?
Your actions wouldn't matter. Prayer would be useless if the outcome is already set.
Precisely. It undermines the whole idea of relating to the divine.
And the text offers a really clever counter-argument, almost like an early scientific observation.
Oh.
It uses the example of twins.
Twins, okay.
Born at the exact same moment, under the exact same configuration of stars, right?
Logically, yeah.
So, if astrology held true, their lives should be identical, or at least incredibly similar.
Makes sense.
But the text points out we see twins who lead most diverse lives. They have different personalities, different health issues, different fortunes.
Happens all the time.
So the text contrasts these astrological explanations with much more practical ones, like diversity of food and exercise, different life choices, different environments, real-world stuff.
That's a really down-to-earth way to debunk it.
It is. Very pragmatic.
So for you, the core message here is this strong affirmation of your own agency.
Your ability to choose.
Yeah, this ancient text is pushing back hard against any idea that your life is just inescapably programmed by some cosmic force. Your choices, your efforts, your will, they genuinely matter.
Which then leads us to a really tricky philosophical knot.
Uh-oh.
How does our free will square with the idea of an all-knowing God? If God knows the future perfectly.
Then how can we be truly free?
Exactly. The text brings up a challenge from the Roman philosopher Cicero.
Cicero, okay, what was his point?
Cicero argued, if God foreknew that we would do it, whatever it is,
Our choice.
right, then Cicero said, we do not do by will that which we do by will. It sounds contradictory, but his point is, God's knowing it beforehand seems to make our willing it not truly free.
It feels predetermined again.
Exactly. Seems to cancel out free will and make things like laws, punishments, rewards, even prayer, totally meaningless if God already knows the outcome because he fixed it. It's a real head-scratcher.
Okay, so how does City of God resolve this? This is where it gets deep.
It does. The text offers a solution it can be a bit mind-bending.
Lay it on us.
It says, yes, God's foreknowledge is infallible. He knows absolutely everything that will happen, every single choice you'll ever make.
Okay, that sounds like predestination.
But wait, it argues this knowledge does not negate your will.
Oh.
It doesn't cause your choices.
How? How can he know without causing it?
Because, the text explains, God doesn't experience time like we do. He beholds all things with absolute unchangeableness in his stable and eternal presence.
Eternal presence, outside of time.
Kind of. He doesn't pass from this to that by transition of thought, like us thinking, okay, this happened, now this is happening, what will happen next?
He's not watching the timeline unfold.
In a way, he sees the whole film at once, not frame by frame. He isn't reacting to our choices in time. He simply sees them all in his eternal now.
Okay, let me try an analogy. Like if I watch a recording of a football game, I know exactly what plays are coming, who scored. But my knowing it now doesn't change the choices the players made during the game. They still freely chose to pass or run.
That's a decent way to think about it, though God's knowledge is infinitely more profound and simultaneous. He exists outside our linear time. He perceives all moments, past, present, future, at once.
So his knowledge doesn't force the outcome. It just knows it.
Precisely. It's knowledge, not causation, in this view. And this understanding also reinforces another key idea, evil.
Right. Where does that come from if God is good and knows everything?
The text is clear. Evil isn't a thing God created. It's described as a defection from God, a falling away, a lack of good.
A choice to turn away.
Exactly. Even the devil, it says, sinneth from the beginning. Not the beginning of creation, but the beginning of his sin. His prideful choice to rebel against the truth he knew.
It always comes back to choice, doesn't it?
It seems to, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of God's design, the text paints this incredible picture of order in the universe.
Order. How so?
It asserts that God ordered all things in number and measure and weight.
Sounds very mathematical. Precise.
It implies a universe that isn't just chaotic, but meticulously planned, deliberate.
Any examples?
Well, there's this fascinating little detail about the number 6.
6.
The source points out that 6 is the first perfect number.
Perfect number. What's that?
It means its divisors, the numbers that divide into it evenly, excluding itself, so 1, 2, and 3 add up to the number itself, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 6.
Huh. Never knew that.
And the text connects this to God completing creation in 6 days. It's used as a symbol of this perfect, harmonious, complete design in everything God made.
So this idea of divine order, what does that mean for you, for us?
Well, it's kind of an invitation, I think, an invitation to appreciate the world's complexity, its beauty, even the parts that seem messy or imperfect.
Like decay or natural disaster.
Exactly. The text says that even things we might see as faults of beasts and trees are actually part of the beauty of seasons. Things have to perish to make way for new life.
Part of the cycle.
Right. These fragments that offend us, as the text puts it, they're actually harmonized with the most accurate fitness and beauty when you see them as part of the whole system.
So maybe next time something seems ugly or out of place.
The idea is to try and zoom out. See if you can glimpse the intricate, maybe beautiful order within the larger pattern.
Okay, let's explore one of the absolute core concepts from this source now. It's probably what City of God is most famous for.
The two cities.
Exactly. The idea of two cities that are sort of intertwined, mixed together right here on Earth.
And these aren't literal cities with walls and gates.
No, it's a metaphor. It's a distinction between two different ways of living, two different ultimate loyalties.
Right. You have the pilgrim city of King Christ, those whose ultimate citizenship, whose hope is heavenly. They see themselves as just passing through this world.
Pilgrims on a journey.
And then you have the earthly city. This group is focused primarily on earthly joys, earthly power, temporal success, the here and now,
And they exist side by side.
completely intertwined. Within societies, within communities, sometimes even within families, maybe even within a single person. But their ultimate goals, their loves, are fundamentally different, opposed even.
And the text gives examples of this conflict.
Oh, absolutely. It uses powerful stories. Think of Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome.
The brothers who fought and Romulus killed Remus.
Exactly. The text uses that to show how the earthly city, driven by ambition and self-interest, is often divided against itself. Conflict is built into its foundation.
And biblical
It
examples.
goes right back to the beginning. Cain and Abel, the first brothers. Cain, representing the earthly city, kills Abel, who represents the heavenly city. This, the text says, illustrated the hatred that subsists between the two cities. It's a deep, fundamental conflict.
Wow, and it gets even more complex, doesn't it? Because it's not like all the good people are in one place and all the bad in another.
Not at all. That's where the metaphor of the church on earth as a dragnet comes in.
A dragnet, like for fishing.
Exactly. Cast into the sea of the world, it gathers up all kinds of fish, both good and bad. The text says it gathers both the elect and many reprobate, many wicked people, all mixed together within the visible church.
So you can't always tell from the outside who belongs to which city.
Not in this life. They're mixed together until the final judgment, the final separation.
Which means, even within the community of faith, there can be conflict.
Absolutely. The text acknowledges that the truly pious, the members of the heavenly city, can even suffer persecution from bad or false Christians within the earthly institution.
That sounds rough.
It is, but the text adds that this kind of internal grief is actually profitable to the sufferers. It tests faith, purifies motives. It's a recognition of the messy reality, even within supposed holy communities.
This whole idea of mixed motives and hidden loyalties, it really brings up a critical question about why we do what we do.
Right. What's our motivation? Are we seeking true, lasting, eternal glory? Or are we just chasing human applause, external validation?
The earthly city's currency, maybe.
Pretty much. The source identifies this love of praise as a fundamental vice.
A vice, even if it makes people do good things sometimes, like Roman heroes seeking honor.
Yeah, it acknowledges that the desire for glory can sometimes restrain worse vices like greed or cowardice. We see that in Roman history. But at its core, it's still seen as a self-serving motivation, not a genuinely virtuous one directed towards God.
And the text has a pretty pointed question about this, doesn't it?
It does. It quotes, "How can ye believe who look for glory from one another and do not seek the glory which is from God alone?"
Oof, that's direct.
It's a real challenge. It cuts right to the heart of our desire for likes, for approval, for status.
And it contrasts the foundations again.
Yes. It contrasts Rome, whose citizens, the text says, believe Romulus became a god out of an error of love, basically human admiration and myth-making.
Building a city on human fame.
Right. Versus the heavenly city, which is founded by him, by Christ, based on belief in him as God, a belief the text argues is grounded in solid evidence like miracles and fulfilled prophecy.
So the foundation matters. Human opinion versus divine reality.
Exactly. And the application for you, listening, is pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, it really pushes you to examine your own motivations. Why are you doing what you're doing? Are you chasing external validation, applause, what other people think?
Or are you trying to live by an inner truth, a connection to the divine, regardless of whether the world notices or approves?
Where are you building your life's foundation? That's a huge question.
It is. And it leads us right into the core of what true worship actually means.
Okay. Worship and sacrifice.
The source takes some time to clarify words like cult, religion, piety.
Words we use all the time.
Right. And it says, well, yeah, you can talk about piety towards your parents or the cult of friendship. Their highest, truest meaning always relates to the worship of God alone.
Setting the ultimate priority straight.
Exactly. It's about right relationship, right focus.
And what about sacrifice? Offering things to God.
Here's a crucial point the text makes. God doesn't need our stuff. It quotes the Psalms. Thou needest not my goodness.
So he doesn't need animal sacrifices or our donations to fill some lack in himself.
Not at all. He's complete. Instead, the text says these visible acts, these external sacrifices, are meant to be signs of the invisible sacrifice.
An invisible sacrifice. What's that?
The real offering God desires. Primarily, a contrite and humble heart.
So it's about the inner attitude. Humility, devotion.
That's the core. The external actions are meant to reflect or even cultivate that internal disposition.
Okay, that reframes sacrifice quite a bit, and this perspective also helps clarify the difference between angels and demons, right?
Absolutely. Good angels, the text explains, they never demand worship for themselves
Why not?
because they find their own joy, their own blessedness in contemplating God.
Yeah.
So they serve God and point us towards worshiping Him alone. They reflect His glory. They don't seek their own.
And demons.
The opposite. They're described as deceitful spirits. Their whole aim is to entangle wretched souls in the deceptive worship of many and false gods.
To distract us from the real thing.
Exactly. And they're sneaky. The text says they even transform themselves into angels of light sometimes, pretending to be good to mislead people into giving them devotion, which ultimately leads away from God.
That sounds dangerous. And it makes you wonder about miracles and supernatural events. How do you tell the difference?
Good question. The source distinguishes between what it calls prodigies or marvels.
Like what?
It mentions pagan stories, like Aeneas's household gods supposedly moving on their own, or a statue moving a ship, things like that. Heathen marvels.
Okay.
And it contrasts those with true divine miracles.
What's the key difference, according to the text?
The purpose. True divine miracles, it argues, always have the ultimate aim of commending the worship of the one true God. They point toward Him.
Whereas the others?
The pagan prodigies, the text often dismisses them as either demonic illusions practiced upon the senses, or just natural phenomena not understood, ultimately serving to promote the worship of false gods or demons, not the true God. The goal identifies the source.
Okay, that's a helpful distinction. As we start to wrap up our journey through these ideas, let's look at the ultimate hope the text offers.
Eternal blessedness. The end game, so to speak.
And a core part of this is the resurrection of the body, which, let's face it, can sound pretty incredible.
It can, flying in the face of natural decay.
So the source uses this really interesting argument. It calls it the two incredibles.
Two incredibles.
Yeah. First incredible, believing that our physical bodies, after death and decay, will actually rise again to live eternally. That's hard to believe.
Okay, agreed. What's the second incredible?
The second incredible is that the world should believe so incredible a thing, meaning the fact that belief in Christ's physical resurrection already spread across the Roman world against all odds, that itself is incredibly unlikely and amazing.
I see. So the argument is,
Since the second incredible, this widespread unlikely belief has already happened, why should we find the first incredible, our own future resurrection, impossible to believe if God could accomplish the one?
He can accomplish the other. It's a clever rhetorical argument, grounding the future hope in a past event.
Yeah, I thought that was neat. And tied to this is the idea of the perfect man. What does that mean?
It's not just about one individual becoming perfect. The text explains it refers to Christ as the head.
Okay.
And His body, the church, meaning all believers throughout time, is made up of all the members, which in their own time shall be perfected.
So it's a collective destiny. Christ and all believers together forming this complete, perfected whole.
Exactly, a unified, transformed humanity.
Now, the text gets surprisingly specific about doubts people had even then about the resurrected body.
It does. It tackles common questions head on.
Like, what about babies or even abortions, people who never reached physical maturity?
The text says all will rise, and God's power is such that He will ensure everyone attains a perfect stature. He'll supply whatever was lacking in earthly development.
Wow. Okay. What else? Hair. Did people really worry about hair?
Apparently. The text quotes the idea that not a hair of your head shall perish. But it clarifies any, excesses, uses the example of an old man's perhaps overly long hair, will be removed. Not losing substance, but achieving perfect form and beauty. No bad hair days in eternity, I guess.
Huh. Good to know. What about really complex cases like cannibalism? Where does the flesh end up?
Yeah, it even addresses that grim scenario. The text reassures that the original flesh will be restored to the first owner. Any borrowed flesh goes back to its rightful person.
How?
God's omnipotence. The power that ensures not a hair of its head shall perish can certainly sort out atoms and molecules. It emphasizes complete restoration and wholeness.
So this all leads to the idea of the spiritual body. What is that exactly? Still physical?
Yes, the text insists it will still be flesh, not just some ghostly apparition, but it will be profoundly transformed, clothed in incorruption and immortality.
Meaning it won't decay or die.
Right, and it will be perfectly subject to the Spirit. No more internal conflict like we discussed earlier. Your body will perfectly obey your redeemed will.
And it'll be different in its properties. You mentioned fire earlier.
Yeah, the text suggests it will be impervious to harm, maybe even from things like fire. It uses analogies from nature, certain creatures thought to live in fire, or the weird chemistry of quicklime being kindled by water.
To show that nature already holds surprising properties?
Exactly, to suggest that this future spiritual body will have capabilities and resilience we can barely conceive of now, a body fit for eternity.
And the ultimate state this leads to, it's described as peace, right?
Yes, but a really expansive definition of peace, not just no more war,
More than that.
much more. It's the harmony of all the body's parts working together, the harmony of the soul's rational and irrational parts, peace within the home, peace within the city,
Layers of peace.
culminating in the ultimate peace,
Yeah.
the peace of the celestial city, which is defined beautifully as the perfectly ordered and harmonious enjoyment of God and of one another in God.
Enjoyment of God and each other in perfect harmony.
That's the goal. And the text sums it up. The peace of all things is the tranquility of order. Everything in its right place, functioning perfectly in relation to God and everything else.
But there's also judgment, right? It's not peace for everyone.
The text is clear on that too. It differentiates between two kinds of death.
Okay.
The first death is what we experience now. It starts when the soul forsakes God, sin, and culminates when the body forsakes the soul, physical death.
And the second death.
That's described as eternal punishment, a state where the soul is inseparable from the body, but held in it only to experience suffering, neither sweet with pleasure nor wholesome with repose. And the text flatly calls it the height of absurdity, to think eternal life is endless, but eternal punishment somehow just stops.
So pretty stark consequences.
Very. But there's an important nuance about judgment, especially regarding suffering in this life.
Okay. It's not all about eternal destiny.
Not necessarily. The text uses the analogy of fire, sometimes not as damnation, but as like a refining process.
Refining.
It talks about people who build on the foundation of Christ. So they're believers, but they build with wood, hay, stubble,
Meaning.
meaning like earthly attachments, things that aren't necessarily sinful, maybe even lawful things like deep love for a spouse or possessions, but things that are ultimately temporary and worldly, attachments that aren't centered on God.
Okay, so they have the right foundation, but the building materials are flimsy.
Exactly. Then the text says, the fire of affliction comes things like bereavement, loss, calamities in this life. That fire burns away the wood, hay, stubble.
Burns away those earthly attachments.
Right. It causes loss, grief, pain. But the text says the builder himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire.
Saved through the fire.
Yes. So earthly suffering for a believer can be seen as a purification process, burning away temporal attachments so that what remains is the solid foundation in Christ. It leads to salvation, not damnation, though it involves painful loss.
That's actually a really hopeful distinction. Suffering is refinement, not just punishment.
It is. And finally, the source wraps up by just marveling at the goodness God has already shown humanity, even in our current flawed state.
What kind of things?
The unspeakable boon of things like reason, understanding, all the amazing arts and sciences humans have invented, weaving, architecture, agriculture, navigation, medicine, music, language.
Things we often take credit for ourselves.
Right. But the text sees these ingenious human capacities as reflections of God's goodness, evidence of the incredible potential he built into us, proof that the body was designed for a reasonable soul, elevating us far above animals, even now.
A reminder of inherent dignity and potential despite everything else.
Exactly. A fundamentally positive view of human nature's design, even acknowledging its fallen state.
Wow. Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground today, journeying through these really profound ideas from City of God.
We really have, from the nature of internal conflict and suffering,
To the power of free will versus fate.
the crucial difference between seeking earthly glory and divine glory,
What true worship and sacrifice really mean.
and that ultimate hope of a transformed, peaceful, eternal existence.
It's a lot to take in, but hopefully broken down in a way that makes sense.
This text really invites us to look at life's biggest challenges and our own inner lives through a very deep philosophical and spiritual lens.
So as you go about your day, here's something to think about, a reflective question for you. How might understanding this framework of the two cities, this idea of the internal struggle between earthly desires and heavenly hopes, as laid out in this ancient text, How might that give you a new perspective? A new way to understand maybe the chaos, but also the quiet sense of purpose that you see unfolding in your own life and maybe in the world around you too.
Worth pondering.
Definitely. We hope this deep dive leaves you with maybe more questions, definitely some insights, and perhaps a new lens for your own journey.